Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. My name is Melissa Fetterhoff. I am the president of the Neshoba Valley Chamber of Commerce. Today, we are pleased to partner with the Greater Lowell Chamber to present from the SBA a webinar on the updated Paycheck Protection Program loan forgiveness. Please note this is not final. Everyone is waiting for final guidance from the legislature. I want to thank the Greater Lowell Chamber for partnering with us on today's webinar. The Greater Lowell Chamber is a great partner of the Neshoba Valley Chamber, and we love working with Danielle.
Thank you, Melissa. We love working with you as well. I'm Danielle McFadden. I'm the president of the Greater Lowell Chamber of Commerce. Very happy to be hosting this event. We also have an event coming up with the Neshoba Valley Chamber on Wednesday. We are doing a virtual conversation with Mass Office of Business Development. All that information can be found on both the Neshoba Valley and Greater Lowell Chamber websites. We invite you to attend that as well. We want to thank Lisa Gonzalez-Welch and Oreste Varela from the SBA for joining us. Lisa Gonzalez-Welch has been employed by the U.S. Small Business Administration, Massachusetts District Office for 30 years. So she started when she was about 5 years old, which is remarkable. Ms. Welch is an economic development specialist responsible for managing the northeast part of the state and the Women's Business Ownership Representative for Massachusetts. Ms. Welch delivers SBA financing, business development, and counseling programs to prospective and aspiring entrepreneurs. I have known Lisa for well over 10 years now, and I absolutely adore her and working with her. Oreste Varela, thank you. Oreste Varela is the SBA's Springfield branch manager. Oreste has been there for over 7 years and provides resources to clients on counseling, capital, and contracting under the umbrella of the SBA programs. If you don't know a lot about the SBA, I encourage you to check out their website. They have so many amazing resources to take advantage of. So without further ado, I'm going to pass it over to the SBA.
Great. Thank you, Melissa, and thank you, Danielle. Both Oreste and I are happy to be here. So we're going to provide you an update on the PPP and what other programs of assistance are there for small businesses that are being impacted by this disaster. So Lisa, as you know, I'm with the Massachusetts District Office. I'm one of a team of 12. And as you know, I do marketing for SBA, so I put a face on our agency, and I work closely with just about anybody to see how we can team up and help those of you who are trying to start and grow a business. So for those of you who don't know the SBA, and Oreste, jump in whenever we're doing this together. For those of you who don't know the SBA, we are a federal agency. We were created back in 1953 by Congress with the mission to help start and grow businesses. And we do that a number of ways. We do it by providing counseling and training. We do it by providing access to capital through SBA-backed loans. We do it by helping you grow your business, whether you go into the procurement arena and acquire some of those contracts or subcontracts, or maybe you want to export your product or service. And in addition to that, we help you recover from a disaster. So that's what we do at the SBA. We have one office in every state: Guam, Virgin Islands, and Puerto Rico. Our office here in Massachusetts is right at the Tip O'Neill building, which is right at North Station. And as Oreste mentioned, we have a branch office in Springfield. We are not at the office right now, but we're all available virtually, whether you want to call us, email us, get together via Teams, Skype, Zoom, anything. We're there for you. So that is just a snapshot of who we are at the SBA. Next slide.
I want to transfer to the Virgin Islands.
Yeah, today would be a good day to do that. It's not very nice. So what we're going to do, Oreste and I, today is give you, we're going to focus on the disaster umbrella of the SBA. We're going to talk about the economic injury disaster loans and grants. We're going to talk about the PPP, Payment Protection Program, and about the Small Business Debt Relief Program for those folks that have been impacted. Next slide. Okay, great. So let's talk about the EIDL. Whoop. The EIDL, Economic Injury Disaster Loan terms. I don't know, maybe some of you knew the Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program was open, then it closed for a while because we were just making it available to agricultural businesses. Initially, when they rolled out the program, agricultural businesses were not included. So we wanted to make it fair. So we had it open for agricultural businesses. And now it's open to everybody again, which is a great news. So under this loan program, entrepreneurs, a borrower can be eligible to borrow up to $150,000. The interest rate for this loan is 3.75 for for-profit businesses and 2.75 for nonprofits. And the terms can go up to 30 years. And I think pretty much, Oreste, we've been seeing everything close to 30 years. I don't think we've seen anything besides that.
Correct. I've only seen 30 years.
Right. Now, this program, and we want to stress, it's really intended for businesses to get back to where they were prior to the disaster hitting. It's not meant for leasehold improvements or buying out your competitor. It's really meant for working capital and getting back the business to where it was prior to the disaster hitting. So what can you use these funds for? Well, you can use them to pay fixed debt, payroll, accounts payable, other bills that really could have been paid had this not happened. So again, they're not intended for leasehold improvements or expansion. Oreste, you want to add to that?
Yeah, there's other things that they can't be used for. You can't use this loan to refinance existing debt. You could business debt. You could pay, like, let's say if you had a small business loan, you could make payments with the proceeds, but you couldn't pay it off unless it was going to be paid off within a few months, you know what I mean, under normal circumstances. But a lot of people ask that question, and people ask me, well, can I use it to pay my house mortgage? Like, no. unless there is an unless. You can't, let's say if you're not getting PPP and this is the only thing you have, and you're using some of these proceeds to replace your own salary, which you have to document, then, once something is identified as your own salary, you can use it for any purpose at all. So it's not a trick or anything, but it's just there are some workarounds when it comes to utilizing these funds.
Thank you, Oreste. And that's a good point. Make sure you document everything. Everything. Next slide, Melissa. Okay, so under the EIDL, Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program, there is a grant, there is an advance that's up to $10,000. It doesn't mean that everyone's going to get $10,000, but when you apply, whether you get this, approved, whether you get denied, whether they're still processing your loan application, this part of the loan is processed first. So you're going to get an automatic deposit into your account with the advance. And typically the way that it works is $1,000 per employee. So if you have 2 employees, that would be $2,000. So again, up to $10,000 doesn't mean everyone will get $10,000. One thing that we should mention under the Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program, this program is really it comes from Treasury to the SBA and from SBA into the hands of the entrepreneurs. So when you fill out your application, you will be providing your routing number for your account, for your checking account. So it's automatically deposited. So if you have applied and you haven't received your advance, send us an email, let us know. Unfortunately, one thing we should mention is we can certainly send it to our disaster team. Oreste and I work for the district. Unfortunately, the ways that the database is set up, we don't have access to the database for disaster. So we have no way of going in and saying, Melissa, Danielle, we can see that your loan is in this stage, or this is what's going on. We have no information. What we can do is send it up to our disaster team, but you too can reach our disaster team if you have questions regarding your loan if you have applied. Just note, they are inundated with a lot of applications, so please be a little patient, but if there's been a little while and you haven't heard, reach out to us and we'd be glad to be able to help any way we can. Next slide. So this is what the streamlined process application looks like, and you can access that. There's the link at sba.gov/disaster, and you can go right in and fill out your application and request the advance. Next slide. Any information on any of the disaster programs, we, Oreste, myself, the rest of our team, we visit the Treasury site every single day. That's where we get direction, guidelines, frequently asked questions, interim final rules. So you can find out all about the CARES Act and the disaster loan programs by visiting the treasury.gov/CARES. Next slide. So let's now talk about PPP. the Paycheck Protection Program. So when this program was rolled out, it was rolled out rather quickly, and it's really meant for the employer to be able to keep their employees on payroll. So when things get back to normal, you could just open shop and be ready to go. So under the PPP, who's eligible? Well, any business that meets the Section 7A, which is SBA's regular loan program, the umbrella for regular loan program eligibility requirements, and has no more than 500 employees, that meets the SBA size standard for the primary industry under the next code. And an exception was made for accommodating food service industry starting with 72. The program was made available to nonprofits, which typically under our regular loan program, we don't lend to nonprofits. It's only for profit, but under our disaster, we do. For veterans organizations, tribal business concerns, nonprofits like religious businesses, sole proprietors, independent contractors, and eligible self-employed individuals. All of these are eligible to apply for the PPP program. Next slide. So how to calculate the maximum loan amount? Well, the agency's in consultation with the Department of Treasury and providing guidance. We're waiting and we're getting information every day to help businesses in calculating their payroll cost for purposes of determining the maximum amount of the Paycheck Protection Program PPP loan and what it can be used for. So the guidance was published by business type for the following: self-employed individuals with no employees, self-employed individuals with employees, self-employed farmers, partnerships filing 1065 forms, S corporations and C corporations filing 1120s and 1120 forms, eligible nonprofit organizations, eligible nonprofit religious institutes, veteran organizations, tribal businesses, limited liability companies. All of these can was filed. They did the cost. Yep. So here we go. So, well, yep. You're good. So the payroll costs paid or incurred during the covered period are eligible for forgiveness. So the costs include salary, wages, commissions, compensations for up to $100,000 prorated for the covered period for 24 weeks. It was initially 8 weeks. Now that's been bumped up to 24 weeks, a maximum of $46,154 per individual. In 8 weeks, a maximum of $15,385 per individual. So borrowers can also include estimates of tips, bonuses, and hazard pay as form of eligible compensation subject to that cap. An employee can cap by the 2019 employees' cash compensation and employee retirement and health contributions. Self-employed individuals are limited to 852 or 2.5 months of their 2019 net income. General partners are calculated based on their 2019 net earning from self-employment. Costs for retirement or health insurance contributions for self-employed individuals or general partners are not eligible. And other allowable costs, including family, medical, sick leave, vacation, payment for employee benefits, consisting of group healthcare coverage, including insurance. And whoops, do you want to scroll down, Melissa? I want to make sure I don't miss any of that. Is also eligible. So what can you not? Non-payroll costs. All obligations and services must have been in place prior to February 15th. So this is key to be considered. Costs include interest expense on real or personal property, not principal payments, rent or lease payments on real or personal property, and utility cost. Costs are eligible for forgiveness if they were paid during the covered period or incurred during the covered period and paid on or before the next billing date. So the covered periods begins the minute that once the loan has been dispersed, and it's extended to 24 weeks. So again, originally it was 8 weeks. The cost can include past month's payment if paid during the covered period, but cannot include the prepayment of services beyond the covered period. And non-payroll costs are limited to 40% of the forgiveness amount of the loan and cannot include any prepayment. So there's something called the Paycheck Protection Program Flexibility Act. And what this does is that it extends the coverage period for loan forgiveness. Initially, when they rolled out the program, it was 8 weeks. They really listened to small businesses, and they've extended that now to 24 weeks after the date of loan disbursement. So it lowers the requirement that 75% of the borrower's loan proceeds must be used for payroll cost. Now that's gone from 75 to 60%. So only 60% has to go towards payroll cost. The borrowers are eligible for partial loan forgiveness if they use at least 60% of the loan forgiveness amount for payroll costs during the forgiveness covered period. It extends the deferral period for borrowers to 10 months after the end of the borrower's 24-week covered period, or the date that the SBA remits the borrower's loan forgiveness amount to the lender. So it gives you more time. It also increases the maturity of the new Payment Protection Program loan that are approved by SBA on or after June 5th, 2020 for 5 years. Typically, when it first rolled out, it was 2 years. Now that's been extended to 5 years. And it provides a new safe harbor.
Lisa, I wanted to jump in on that.
Yes,
The 5 years is not automatic. So if you have a PPP loan prior to 5 June, you have to talk to your bank and say, can I have my 2 years extended to 5 years? So it is not automatic, and it's mutually agreed to between the borrower and the bank. The bank is not compelled to do 5 years. You kind of have to ask them nicely is what it comes down to.
That's true. Thank you, Areste. It's true. So if you do get a loan, and the program ends tomorrow, today's the 29th, right? It ends tomorrow. So if you have applied, that's fine. If you are looking to apply, you have to do it today because the program closes tomorrow. And we don't know whether it's going to be extended or not. So we're waiting to hear from that, but it officially closes tomorrow. So the borrowers who have already received PPP loans, they can retain the option to use the 8-week covered period, or they can go for the 24-week covered period. It's up to you.
Can I ask a question?
Oops. So the PPP forgiveness process, you're going to complete the form 3508 or 3508, the easy form or equivalent, and submit it to the lender. The lender's going to look at the application, the documentation, and submits a decision to SBA within 60 days of the receipt of the completed application, requesting payments for the forgiveness amount and the loan. So the SBA is going to remit the forgiveness amount to the lender within 90 days. And if the borrower receives an idle advance amount, SBA will deduct this from the forgiveness amount because you can't be forgiven, you can't double dip, so to speak. So that's something that we should make you aware of. I just want to make sure you know. Any amount that's not forgiven is payable pursuant to the note signed by the borrower, and it has a 2 or 5 year maturity depending upon when you applied, and if approved or amended on or after June 5th, and fixed interest rates subject to the PPP loan payment deferment. So the easy loan forgiveness application. The borrower is a self-employed individual, an independent contractor, or a sole proprietor who had no employees at the time of the PPP loan application, did not include any employee salaries in the computation of average monthly payroll on the borrower's application. So the borrower did not reduce the annual salary or hourly wages of any employees, and by more than 25% during the covered period or the alternative payroll covered period, as is shown below, compared to the period between January 1st, 2020 and March 31st, 2020. And the borrower did not reduce the number of employees, or the average paid hours between January 1st and the end of the covered period, or the borrower was unable to operate during the covered period at the same level of business as it was before February 5th due to the compliance requirements established or guidance issued.
And just, there's a lot of words on that slide there, but
I know.
the bottom line is most businesses will be using the easy loan form. This is kind of confusing, but anyway, so that's most likely that'll be the case. You'll be using the easy form, which I think is only 2 or 3 pages. I forget.
Two pages, I think. Yeah.
2, yeah.
So it just simplifies it a little bit. So the Paycheck Protection Program for Business application, this is what it looks like, just showing it to you. And the easy application, this, 3508. Yeah,
and before anybody starts filling out these forms, the banks are not ready to accept forgiveness applications because the SBA forgiveness portal is not up and running yet. So, and the other thing is there's no rush to forgiveness. I answered a couple of questions in the chat box there. There's no rush to forgiveness. So unlike getting the loan and trying to get the money before it runs out, forgiveness is not going to run out. So don't rush to it. And you never know what Congress is going to do or pass or whatever. So maybe things would be more favorable the longer you wait. So you got 24 weeks. Don't rush to it, is my advice.
And that's a good point. Initially it was 8 weeks, but now you do have 24 weeks. So there's no need to run and do this, to run for the forgiveness part of it right now. And we're awaiting further guidance as well. Next slide. Yep. So the safe harbor and maintaining full-time employees. So the borrower must maintain their full-time employees during the covered period as compared to the reference period, February 5th, 2019 through June 30th, 2019, or January 1st, 2020 through February 29th, 2020. And for seasonal businesses, any 12 weeks consecutive period between May 1st, 2019 and September 15th, 2019. So the forgiveness would be reduced proportionally by the percentage reduction of full-time employees. Again, the program was really intended for you to be able to keep your employees on the payroll. So the full-time employees means 40 hours or more. If less than 40 hours, you can prorate or use 0.5 for part-time employees. So the borrower is exempt from such reductions if the full-time employee reduction safe harbor applies. So per PPP Flexible Act, new safe harbor date is December 31st, 2020. And we can help you. We're going to talk about our resource partners that can help you try to calculate and figure out, how to position yourself. So don't stress over this. Next slide. So maintaining the employee's salary and wages. Again, the forgiveness is going to be reduced by the dollar amount of any wage reduction in excess of 25% of salary wages earned between January 1st, 2020 through March 31st, 2020. So the calculation is performed per employee, it's really not aggregate, to determine if pay, salary, or wages was reduced more than 25% by comparing the average annual salary or hourly wages during the covered period or an alternative period to Q1 2020. The second step would be to determine if the salary hourly wage reduction safe harbor is met by comparing the salary hourly wages from February 15th through April 26, 2020 through February 15, 2020. And if decreased, it's restored by the early December 31st, 2020, or the date the application is submitted for safe harbor is met. The third step is if the safe harbor is not met, then calculate the decrease in excess of 25% annualized and prorate for 8 to 24 weeks to determine the salary hourly wages reduction for the employee. So don't count anyone that was used as a full-time employee reduction if that applies. So again, we have our resource partners that we're going to talk about in a few slides that can help you as you're trying to sort this out and see where you stand as you get ready to submit your for forgiveness.
Yeah, and this also is not as complicated as it appears.
No.
It's really
it sounds
not.
complicated.
Yeah, it does sound. I don't know. I guess our whoever down at headquarters has a way. There must be lawyers. Are there any lawyers on? Sorry, but they have a way to make things sound more complicated than they really are. I mean, again, we can work through these things on an individual basis, or like Lisa's going to mention. But most people, the thing is that the big thing about the safe harbor is that originally the date for where in terms of forgiveness, and they were talking about calculation, and they were talking about maintaining payroll, that was originally 30 June. So this got extended out to 31st of December. So what that means is that if you had 10 employees February 15th to get forgiveness prior to all these changes, on June 30th, they had to have 10 employees. Now that's been pushed out to December. So it just gives the businesses a lot more flexibility, and odds are you have reached the safe harbor, meaning that you're not going to have any reductions at all. And there's a couple more slides on this also.
So documentation required to meet safe harbor. We hire and restore salary and wages levels by December 31st. So as Oreste indicated, it was initially June, so now you have more time. You have to document good faith offer to rehire employees. Please document, write everything down. Danielle didn't want to come back. It's documented. I sent her a letter to come back, and she didn't want to come back because she's doing something or whatever the case may be. Make sure everything is documented. It must be a written offer during the covered period at the same salary and hours as the last regular pay period. You have to maintain a record documenting offer and its rejection should they not want to come back, and notify the state unemployment office within 30 days of the employee rejection. So that's something that the entrepreneurs, the small business owner, needs to do. You have to document changes in headcount for employees, any fired for good cause, voluntary resigns, and voluntary requests as a reduced schedule.
And a documentation can be an email or a text, as long as there's something between you and the employee that shows that you've made the offer, they rejected it, whatever. So,
yeah. So the PPP loan forgiveness steps for employers. You have to add the total eligible payroll and non-payroll cost incurred and paid during the covered period following disbursement. You have to calculate any reduction in payroll greater than 25% of prior quarter by employee. You have to reduce that total eligible expenses by any payroll reduction, if applicable, and safe harbor was not met, and calculate any percent decrease in full-time employees from 24-week covered period versus comparison period. Apply the percentage decrease in full-time employees to eligible total expenses, and if applicable and safe harbor was not met, and calculate whether payroll costs are at least 60% of the eligible cost. That's the key, that's 60%. So a summary on the PPP loan forgiveness process, and again, we're getting information every day, so we welcome the opportunity to do another update as more information comes forward. But right now, calculate the loan forgiveness amount as the lesser of eligible total expenses after hourly wages or salary reductions and full-time employee reductions, eligible payroll cost divided by 0.60 to ensure that 60% of the loan is spent on payroll, and the original PPP loan amount. Owner's compensation replacement is calculated based on the 2019 net profit, with forgiveness of such amounts limited to 8 weeks worth, 8 versus 52 of the 2019, and net profit up to $15,385 for an 8-week covered period, or 2.5 months worth of 2.5 divided by 12 of the 2019 net profit, up to $20,833 for a 24-week covered period. So the covered expenses are limited to the extent claimed or entitled to be claimed of the 2019 Schedule C, and it's considered prior to February 15th, 2020. So let's touch upon the SBA debt relief program. SBA is this is great news for any of you who have an existing SBA regular loan. That's a 7A, 504 microloan that's in regular servicing. SBA is going to pay 6 months of the principal and interest for any borrowers of current 7A 504 microloans. So this is some relief to you. And for loans not on deferment, SBA will begin making payments with the next payment due on the loan and will make 6 months payment on that. For loans current and deferred, SBA is going to make the payments due after the deferment period has ended and will make 6 months payment. And for any loans made after March 27, 2020, fully dispersed prior to September 27th, we will also make payments, 6 months payments on principal and interest. So it's a big thing. So if you do have an existing SBA loan, your loan officer at your institution where you got the loan should be notifying you, but you can certainly ask about it as well. Now, you're not alone. And I know this is a lot of information and a lot of it sounds scary and confusing and there's so much out there, but you have 4 friends at the SBA, 5, including us, the SBA district office. Through the SBA, we have 4 partners, and these include SCORE. They've been around since 1964. They're comprised of men and women. Some are retired, some are still running their business, and they volunteer their time to mentor businesses, whether you're starting, growing, looking for exit strategies at any stage of starting and operating a business. It's all free, it's all confidential. We have 6 SCORE chapters in the state, and they're available to meet with you right now via Skype or Zoom or phone or email and help you any way they can as you try to move forward and get back on track after dealing with this pandemic. We also have the Small Business Development Centers. They operate out of colleges and universities throughout the state. So they also can provide free confidential business advice. They can get with you via Skype, Zoom, email, phone, and help you. And in addition to that, we have our Women's Business Center, which is a center for women in enterprise. And we're lucky enough to have 2, one in Eastern Mass that is based out of Boston, one in Central Mass based out of Westboro. And their mission is to empower women to become economically self-sufficient and prosperous through entrepreneurship, but they help everybody, men and women. So you too can reach out to them. And the Veterans Business Outreach Center for New England, they cover from Maine to Connecticut. A lot of our servicemen and women had to put their dream of starting a business or their business on hold to go serve our country. So the Veterans Business Outreach Center is a resource to help them access resources as they're getting ready to launch and grow their business. So all 4 of them, every day, it's all hands on deck, including us at the district office, are talking to small business owners, trying to connect them with resources. Our resource partners are getting together with our small business owners and helping them dust off that business plan or maybe update their business plan, also going through their financial statements, helping them understand the application process, filling out the application as they're getting ready to either apply for a loan or apply for the forgiveness. So please reach out to our resource partners. They all provide assistance. It's all free and confidential. Be careful. There's a lot of scams going on out there. So if you have any questions, please reach out to us at the SBA. We'd love to be able to help you any way that we can. This is those are hot links that you can, tap them or click them, and it takes you to the site where you can access the different SCORE chapters throughout the state. The Northeast SCORE chapter has 11 locations throughout the Northeast to meet with clients. Right now, as I stated, everybody's meeting virtually, so whether it be Zoom or Skype or phone or email, but they're all available to you. We also have 2 specific small business development centers. One is specific to export, so anybody who's interested in exporting their product or service, you can connect with our Mass Export Center and learn about how they can be of help to you as you're getting ready. They can help you identify which country would be more likely to want to do business with you. We also have the PTACs, the Procurement Technical Assistance Centers, and these are counselors that help you navigate how to do business with the federal government, how to put together a capability statement, how to go out there and identify who might be able to use your product or service. So these are all available to you. They're all free of charge. Again, as I stated, be careful. We have been hearing scary stories A lot of scams going on out there. Hey, for $500, Danielle, I can fill out that application. You can get a PPP or EIDL. Please know there is no fee associated with applying for the EIDL loan or the PPP. It is all free. There's no fee from the lending institution on the PPP or from the SBA. So be careful. And if you have any questions, just call and check with us beforehand. One thing that we want to invite you to is to subscribe to our Gov Delivery, that sba.gov/updates. We do have a quarterly newsletter that used to be published quarterly, but now there's so much information it's published every other day. So if you subscribe to our newsletter, you'll be getting it and be on the pulse of information as to what resources, what programs, what initiatives are available to help small businesses as they're getting ready to start, grow, and move forward. So is there any questions?
So when you're hiring back employees, so for the PP loan, let's say you said 5 employees, right? And what happens if one of the people you don't want to rehire because their position is no longer needed, but you have a different position and you'd like to fill that position with someone else, but that person cost you less money? Can you do that now with that PPP loan, or do I have to hire that first plumber, the first person back?
Yes, you can do that. It's not a problem.
Okay.
You just want to make sure that you execute the funds, all the funds that you receive, as best as possible. And there's lots of ways to do that. So like Lisa mentioned, 60% to get 100% forgiveness, 60% has to go to salary. So let's say you should pretty much achieve that. Even if you bring somebody else on at a lower rate, you're still going to probably hit that 60%. So you just want, there's other things, I know we've covered this in different presentations. You can give everyone a bonus. You can pay people hazardous duty pay. So, and it's up to the employer what that means. Like, I don't know if it's 10% or 20, whatever. So those things, there's these other workarounds in terms of expending these funds. So because the things, you don't want to leave money on the table. I wouldn't, right? So you want to, expend the funds as best as possible. And then if you do have other expenses that Lisa mentioned, like the lease rent or utilities, and then we've been told that utilities could include like fuel for a fleet of vehicles. So that was kind of new news to us. But so you just want to expend that money to the greatest extent possible. So you just, so you're just using it up to your advantage.
Right. So you're saying gas for the vans when they use them, that's an expense you can do now?
Apparently, I know, Lisa, I don't know if you remember, but Bob actually said that. Bob, he's our district director. But what I would do, though, is that I would, see, the thing is, specifically what's written, all that it says is utilities. So, like, if I was a business owner, I would spend the money as much as I can on salary. And then I would, on the other things, like on electricity and gas and those things, let's say you just couldn't spend all the money you have, but you have like a large gasoline or diesel bill for your fleet, then utilize it for that. Like, so I guess I would be, even though I say that it can be used for that, I haven't read anywhere where it can be used for that other than our boss saying it. So I would still expend it as much as possible on the things that are written in black and white, if that makes sense. So
is it still now, when you explained it earlier, it's still a certain amount of time is from when you get the loan to when?
24 weeks.
From when you got the loan?
Correct.
Okay. What if you don't, did they extend that or no? No?
It's not going to be extended further. I highly doubt it.
Okay.
Great. Dave Bruce, you had a question.
Yes, so this is Dave Bruce. I work for the Billerica Boys and Girls Club, and for the most part, it's pertaining to what Sandra was talking about. But so right now, our salaries are above the 60% of the our expenses. My one question is where the slide that stated what your full-time employees were during either 2019 or for the first quarter of 2020. Mm-hmm. We shut down March 13th. We were a seasonal, organization, and we had roughly 100 employees. And on March 13th, we shut down. Nobody knew at that time about the PPP program. We kept 7 of our full-time employees on, and we got approved for our PPP loan April 18th, and we're going to be closed through at least September. Our 24-week period does go through October. We are possibly not going to be able to rehire all of our employees to get back to where we were in January, February. Even though we're at the 60% expense or higher rate, is not rehiring all of our employees going to hurt us for the full forgiveness?
On your initial PPP application, how many employees are listed?
The 7. At that time, we only had
just 7. So as long as you have 7, you're set. You're all set.
Okay, so it is based off of when the application. I thought it was like from.
No, it's based on what is on the application, because that's what you're certifying. You're saying I need PPP money for these 7 people, not 100 people.
Oh well, okay. I misunderstood. Yeah, so we had 7 on the time, and I mentioned we put that down, but the monies that we got were related to the 100+ employees because they needed a 2019 amount. So the money we received was pertaining to about 100 average employees.
So
we possibly may not get that to that level by December 31st.
So that's an interesting scenario.
Yeah, it was the fact we had to shut down, right away, knowing that this was gonna hurt us.
Yeah.
And the PPP loan came out, luckily, 2 or 3 weeks later. But had we known, we might have done something different.
So this is a good scenario to talk about. So let's just say that at the end of the forgiveness, let's say you got $100,000. And you expended, you spent it on everyone got paid, the 7 employees, whatever, and you had $40,000 left over because, you don't have the number of employees to spend it on. So whatever is not utilized becomes a loan at 1%. I guess that's the short story. Again, what's critical for the forgiveness is the number of employees that were on the application. If that number is 7, so that's what you'll be held to. So even though, let's say you got money based on 100, the terms of forgiveness is based on the number of employees that you put down, not the amount of the salary, if that makes sense. So yeah, so whatever's not utilized becomes a loan at 1%, or you just, since it's laying there, let's say that money is just laying there because you can't expend it. You've used it for everything you could, utilities, this and that and the other thing. And you have, so then at the end, when you apply for forgiveness, the bank's going to say, okay, X number of dollars is not forgiven. You have options to pay it back. And then, so if you want money at 1% for 5 years or 2 to 5 years, whatever, then keep it. If you don't, you just pay it back at that, at that point in time. And some interest will have accrued, however much between disbursement and between when the forgiveness is filed.
Hi, so I have a question with regard to when you get the EIDL loan, it doesn't always tell you it was just a deposit was made into the bank account.
You're right.
And my understanding is that if you have an EIDL and you get a PPP, they both won't, even if you fit all the requirements for the PPP and it's completely forgiven, the EIDL, there's an element where it's not forgiven.
Right. So the relationship, if I can, so the relationship is pretty simple. The EIDL grant, not the loan. The loan's a loan, forget about it, right? So the EIDL grant, that's the portion that gets dumped into your account miraculously. Usually says SBA D for disaster. So let's say if you had a $100,000 PPP and you got $10,000 EIDL advance and you had 100% forgiveness, you have 90,000 that's forgiven and 10,000 that is not. And that 10,000 becomes a 1% PPP loan. That's what happens because the EIDL grant is free money. The PPP at 100% forgiveness is free money. And the government is saying you can't have free and free. Does that make sense?
So whatever, if you get 100% forgiveness on your PPP, then you should consider anything that your EIDL is as non-forgivable.
Only the grant, right. Only the grant portion. So that's up to 10,000 because the EIDL, when you apply for EIDL, you're applying for a loan and a grant. Usually the grant comes, boom, just out of the blue. And then the loan, usually you get an email, it says log on to a portal, this is the loan amount. So the EIDL loan is a loan and it always, it's always a loan unless Congress changed something. So it's a loan that you're paying back at 3.75% interest 30 years. So it's just the grant portion, which is maximum of $10,000 that affects PPP. The EIDL grant affects the PPP.
Okay, so, and are you seeing instances, because it's confusing to us, that got the EIDL, if it's a grant or if it's a loan, because it just showed up. And actually, we had two amounts show up in our bank account. And they look like they're both SBA loans or money from them.
And do you have one business or?
Yeah, one business.
So the thing is, the loan cannot be a surprise. It cannot be a surprise because any loan you have to sign for. You will get an email. It says log on to the portal. It says you have been approved for a loan for X number of dollars. And then you have a choice. You can accept it as it is, you can decline it, or you can reduce it. Then, so once you get past that step, that goes back to SBA, and then they go for final approval. And actually, we found sometimes people are getting disapproved, which is frustrating. But anyway, it's rare. So then you would get loan documentations that say this is your final approval, this is the loan, these are the terms, and then you'll digitally sign it. So the loan, the EIDL loan, will not be a surprise. It cannot be a surprise.
And that's not going to affect the PPP forgiveness. It's just that's your own separate loan with the SBA.
Correct.
Right.
That's correct.
All right. But if you do get something without that documentation, then that's considered a grant.
Correct.
Yes. But if you got two, you might want to flag that.
Yeah.
Right. If there's two, the thing is the EIDL grant is based on the number of employees, $1,000 per employee. So that would give you a clue, if you had, let's say, 5 employees and you got 2,000 and 3,000, which Lisa or I and no one else has heard of, meaning 2 deposits. We've only heard of 1 deposit, right, Lisa? You haven't heard of 2 deposits. So that would be, maybe there's some duplication there. Like, let's say you had 4 employees.
That second number, though, if you're saying 1,000 per employee, that's what it maps to in my mind. And then the second number was the grant. Did they send the grant after they send the loan?
So sometimes the last couple of weeks, I've heard that actually a lot of people received the loan. They're like, where's the grant? Where's the grant? Whereas all these weeks prior to, people were calling saying, I got this money. What the heck is it? So they were getting the grant first.
Yeah.
And so now we're seeing a little reversal for whatever reason. And I have no idea.
Can I ask one more question?
Yeah.
On the PPP element, you're talking about giving bonuses and stuff to try to make the numbers work, does there have to be some sort of proportional equalizing among the employees, or can it just be a random decision made that as long as it appears on payroll and as long as you hit these percentages, no one really cares who gets what. It's just you've got the right amount of employees, you can bonus whoever you want to bonus. Is that right, or is that not right?
Well, so first of all, I didn't suggest the hazard pay or bonuses to game the system or to work the numbers. It's just that what came out, with one of the iterations of updates was that hazardous duty pay and or bonuses are allowable. There is no guidance as to what that looks like in terms of percentage or who gets it, who doesn't. That's a management decision. That's entirely up to you. But again, it's not. It just gives you more freedom. It's not that like, oh, I got to make these numbers work. I'm going to give everyone a bonus. So the thing is, it's just. I'm just saying, if you have the money, you got the money. It's from the government. It's basically free. Utilize as best you can. Take care of the people as best as you can.
Great. So we have one final question from Robert. Most borrowers submitted the PPP loan application without requesting deduction of the EIDL grant fund. How does the lender know the borrower received the EIDL grant funds now that they start randomly depositing funds in?
When the business owner files for forgiveness, it's on them to write, on that forgiveness form, it'll say idle grant or some words to that effect, and then you will put down there how much you received. So that's how that will work.
All right. Well, we want to thank everybody for attending this wonderful session. It is recorded, so we will be sharing it.
Oh, cool.
We want to thank Lisa and Oreste for this great information and for taking the time. We know how incredibly busy you've been over the past few months, so we really appreciate you joining us today. The SBA has been a great partner to not only the chambers during this pandemic, but throughout the years that we've been working with them, and they've been keeping chambers informed throughout the pandemic, even as we await the legislative changes. So thank you. If anybody has any questions after this, please do not hesitate to reach out to your chamber partners, Greater Lowell and Neshoba Valley, and we hope that you have a wonderful day.